Hello everyone and welcome back to the Triforce podcast. I'm just picking up the pieces because there was a power cut in the office last night.
Oh my goodness.
What? And like a bunch of things got fried, including the setup that I used to record, so I'm on a bit of a ghetto.
Did you lose any gear?
Well, thing is, like, I went to record here, and I was going to be like, oh, I'll just use it doesn't look like it's working, I'll just use the backup. And then so I'll just mention it to TJ, and he was like, oh yeah, the backup's fried. And I was like, oh my god. So good thing I checked, because otherwise, we would have had the old... We've never lost a recording, touch wood, of Triforce, which is uncommon, because doing this for a job, you always lose...
We've had to have lost at least one, right?
No, I'm pretty sure we have had one where we were recording, and this would have been in the earlier days. I think my Audacity had paused or something like that.
Oh yeah,
and we were like,
we need to purposely lose a recording so then we can have like a really interesting the lost recording,
oh yeah,
20 years time.
Shit.
Oh yeah,
wait, like long after the podcast is done and maybe like we're all dead and stuff, they find like, I was in the record store and I found a long lost recording, a missing podcast.
This is what Paul McCartney's doing with one of John Lennon's old tapes that he got sent. It's been all AI apparently was used to like bring back the recording.
Jesus.
And they're releasing it long after he was dead. I think it was a song though that George Harrison said it was crap. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was one of these. I don't know if these posthumous things.
He was pretty salty though, George Harrison. I think he thought a lot of stuff was crap, even though it wasn't necessarily crap. Like,
maybe like me. Or you, or like us, like this podcast generally. I think he'd get on well with us, George.
I think he would too. George, if you're interested, if you're out there, we've always got a spot for you.
Perhaps the ghost of George Harrison.
He did die a long time ago, it's true.
Join us. Yeah.
We could get a hologram of him, like all those bands are doing now.
Oh, like Hatsune Miku. Get some Japanese...
ABBA are doing it as well. Maybe more commonly known. Although I suppose it depends on the part of the world that you're in. Maybe Hatsune Miku is Trump's ABBA in different parts of the world. I'm sure
Trump
will
need a hologram
Trump's
soon.
ABBA.
God.
Goodness.
So will Biden. We're going to have two ghost presidents. I mean, they're both on their last legs, it looks like.
Pretty much, yeah.
I've got something to tell you, lads, that happened to me during the week.
Did you guys enjoy? I just want to say a little callback to the last week's podcast. Did you guys enjoy all the research I did on UFOs throughout the week?
So last week, hang on, just to recap last week, I asked Sips if he believed in UFOs. A little bit
actually,
like how
Flax did.
How like
Flax.
Half of the people in America do. It's actually incredibly common that people believe in UFOs. So it's not unusual. And Sips answered it by saying he didn't care.
No.
But actually later in the podcast we found out that he did care. He just didn't want to be seen as a crazy UFO nutcase.
I think that's fair enough.
You just wanted to keep your ufology secret.
Yes.
Which is fine. I think it's fun. I think a lot of this stuff, right, is fun to believe in. It's fun to think that UFOs are real. It's fun to think that there's some secret conspiracy. I think we love to find interesting alternative history solutions to things that have happened. It's why so many books follow a slightly different history.
Indeed.
Yes. And are very popular. There's a shitload of YouTube channels I follow, actually.
Well,
it's like alternate history.
Somebody messaged me because I think people that listen to the podcast know that I quite enjoy digging into these weirdo conspiracies because I'm immune to being sucked into any of this. Like, I've seen so much of it, and I'm a reasonable person, I like to think, and I go by pretty much the science on most of this stuff. They think they do too, and they think they are too, but even a casual glance reveals that these people are crackers. And once they see evidence of something, in quotes, they see it everywhere. And that, to me, is always a dead giveaway, that it's not just this one thing. It's linked to everything else. So, for example, someone said to me, Flax, are you all over this? ? And they know that I look for these kind of things. This is one I had never heard of. This is a brand new, as far as I can tell, conspiracy theory. There's a woman on Twitter called Caroline Coram. She has she has a lot of followers on Twitter.
Yeah.
And she claims that there is a vast global underground war taking place along, like, underground. Right. And we don't know about it. So, for example...
But she does.
Oh, she knows, yes.
Oh, well.
If you're wondering how it's possible to have a global underground war take a look at your nation's fault lines, the mining system, and the national grid. It's all there. So she's claiming that it's all just hidden beneath underground. There's a war going on. Now, I haven't dug deep enough. I haven't had time to dig really deep and figure out who's meant to be at war with whom.
Well, it's underground. You got to dig deep.
Right,
yes.
You really have to dig deep. So
You have to unearth.
Literally,
because it's unearth the secrets.
I mean, this really is an underground
Because it's no
conspiracy,
fun
I'll
if
tell
it's
you.
all spelled out for
It's
you, right?
nothing is on the surface. It's all bubbling below.
Yes.
So, I mean, for example, she's claiming that the push to get rid of fatbergs in city sewers is evidence that the government wants to continue their underground war, and presumably the fatbergs are getting in the way.
Oh, man.
so-
Those pesky fatbergs.
I know.
Fatberg dead ahead. I'm trying to run the USS Dreadnought into. There's a fatberg dead ahead, sir. What are we gonna do?
Deploy
Let
the
band
underground
play.
nuke
Get
system.
the nukes. There's this sort of rise. There was recently that this has been the news because of the increasing temperature across Europe. A lot of insects that normally just had to stay in hotter areas like North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa are migrating outside those areas, and with them they're bringing a lot of diseases that we previously weren't exposed to here. They think it's a plot.
Yeah, and a lot of animals as well, like invasive species.
A lot of invasive species,
you know.
invasive plants, all this kind of stuff. Of course, this isn't just because climate change is real. They've found another reason, and of course that reason is, it's fucking Bill Gates, right? They think it's Bill Gates. So
Again.
a lot of people that are dealing with diseases in Africa have mosquito farms, right? I'm pretty sure
Right.
Tom Scott did a video about the locust farms and stuff like that. This is real stuff because you need to study the insects, see how they act, and you can work on better ways to repel
Yeah,
them
you
or
can't go
kill
out
them.
and capture them from your lounge.
Right.
You know, you've got to have a controlled
You need
like,
a
breeding
lot of
program.
them. Exactly. And you need to know they're all the same mosquito and they've all been in the same conditions and blah, blah, all this kind of stuff. That's just the way science works. So
Yeah,
they
you're not
see
leaving
these
like
farms
a slab of meat out in the garden.
just
either.
grabbing,
It's done in a
just
lab.
scraping insects into a bag. It's actual science. So they see these labs that are generating mosquitoes for study, and they think that what he is doing is injecting them with viruses and then releasing them into Europe. It's laughable. So it's all stuff like this. The weird thing is the real science of climate change is ignored by these people as a lie, and they'd
Right.
rather than say, well, yes, this clearly is the case, and all the science is there to back it up. No. Wake up, people. It's Bill Gates. He's spreading viruses because, he wants to,
There is like a bunch of scientific theory around that kind of thing, which is how all this stuff gets started. It's like scientific ideas half understood or half listened to kind of thing, where if you do, you can give mosquitoes a virus that kills other ones and then release them into the wild to spread that virus, to reduce the population, or modify them genetically so they can't
they hate
breed
blood.
They have some like lower breeding success rate or something, so that will reduce their numbers over time. Like there are ideas out there that I don't know if they've actually ever been done successfully, or it does sound like a disaster movie waiting to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Do you know what I
it's
mean?
just-
These
it's
days?
Yeah.
And I think that's
crazy.
why it ends up getting into the conspiracy theory mindset. But I think these days you can be a conspiracy theorist and pose as a real journalist on the internet.
Yeah.
And this Caroline Coram, her Twitter is researcher and writer, Sky and Earth anomalies and emergency news. It's like it kind of draws
Checks
you
out.
in.
Sounds
she
credible to
uses
me. Checks out.
charts and graphs and scientific language. But
most articles don't end with, "Are you awake yet? Have you woken up? They're hiding in plain sight." That's not the way you end an actual article, I would suggest. That's how you appear to be a lunatic. And the reason this feels quite personal to me this week in particular is a very old friend of mine has now started posting this kind of shit on Facebook. And I've had to unfriend them, which is a shame, because it's just depressing to see how easily people slip down into this route. Now, here's the problem.
I think it's so easy to get in, though.
Yeah, but this is the problem. A quarter of people in the UK believe in a lot of these conspiracy theories.
Right.
One quarter.
But you think about that, and then you think about spiritualism. Like the amount of people I've met in my life who tell me some ludicrous nonsense about crystals, and I laugh away at them in their face, and then they like really offended by it, and I'm like, oh fuck, I thought you were joking. I'm sorry.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? That's happened like many times to me.
Really?
Yeah, like several times.
Dude, literally a quarter of people in this country believe, for example, that COVID was a hoax. One quarter of people polled. were willing to say that, which means there might be...
Can you prove that it wasn't?
Yes.
I rest my case.
I mean, we all know people who died of COVID. What a hoax. I mean, this is
ordinary idiots.
I don't know
can't
anybody
point out where China is on a map, let alone dispute another ordinary idiot who has to prove that COVID was real. This is the problem. We're not equipped to counter these nutcase. Ordinary people are not equipped to shut this down. Like, there is this sort of ability where, you know, someone puts out a press release, and then after that, it's just sort of generally in the awareness. And if people ask questions, well, when's the new Transformers movie coming out? Like, someone will know, right? Because the Transformers publishers don't have to reply to every one of those individual comments. Someone else will say, right? Some idiot will say, because that's a low. It's like a small enough about information.
Wait, is the Transformers franchise a part of this?
I don't know. Maybe
knew it.
Whatever.
Yeah,
they're doing an animals
hiding
one.
in plain sight.
They're doing you know those robo animals?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that.
Wait. So Mrs. F, we saw that trailer the other day. She said to me, she turned to me, 100% serious, and she said, "Do you feel like Transformers started to go downhill when they brought in those animals that were Transformers?" And the way she said it, so seriously.
Beast Wars.
No, she was...
Rise of the Beasts.
I said,
called the new movie.
Right, but so they brought out these
Beast Wars,
animals as Transformers, which was
Beast Wars came out like in the 80s, though. I remember Beast Wars coming out.
Yeah.
But I said to her, no, I don't think so, love. I
don't think there were any conspiracies back in the 80s either, so it doesn't tie in.
It was like saying, do you think that, you know, it was like asking a question about politics. It was the way she said it, she was just so serious. She said to me, do you think that Transformers started to go downhill when they brought in those animals? I was like, I don't know.
Maybe it's a trick question. Like, have you made love to your wife since? Like, since giving the answer? You know what I mean?
Some sort of test.
Oh,
it was like a test, yeah.
Interesting.
Because you never know. Like, women they're wily. You know, they're crafty. They'll catch you out as well.
They're coming up with any excuse to
They'll
not
do
have sex with
anything they can to withhold. Yes. They'll do anything they can.
So that's why I've been sleeping on the sofa, because of my opinions on the animal Transformers. Interesting. Wait. Before we move on to something else, we have a really good email. This plays into the conspiracy thing. Okay, this is from Caden. This is your friend from the best of the Dakotas, which must mean North Dakota. And today,
North Dakota.
I have something I feel should be addressed. I was listening
Big up to North Dakota out there.
Yeah, shout out.
I was listening to Mailbag Special number 14. It was good, as all episodes are, but it's not the actual podcast that raises concern. It's the pre-roll ads that have me raising a brow. I want to know what you, Lewis, and especially Sips have to say about it. The first ad I got on said episode was one for Wisconsin tourism.
No.
Oh my God.
Way.
Was there a mix-up at Spotify, or dare I ask, if big Wisconsin has gotten to you boys?
I think it has.
Let me tell you. So I've had
lots of emails come in about Wisconsin.
Of course.
And as you know, the big wigs, the big boys out there are always selling your data between each other and stuff. So all of those Wisconsin emails coming through to Flax mostly about people saying that there was a common theme. I don't know if you noticed when people would write in, they always said that tourism was a big thing in Wisconsin. So I think that the Gmail account picked up on these trends, these repeat keywords.
I see.
Then they sold the data.
I think you're right.
They sold the data to say these guys love Wisconsin, and they've identified that not only is that our email address, but we're also the hosts of this podcast. And they tied the two together. We're talking multiple millions in fees here for all of this data.
I hate to say this. I know it sounds like it's just a conspiracy theory you've just made up, Sips, but this is almost exactly what happens.
Oh, 100%.
So what happens is
100%.
you put this podcast out, the ad agency can scan it, get a subtitle track, and search for words that we talk about, and then apply adverts that are appropriate to topics that we're addressing in that podcast, right? And it's done. Spotify's, I think it's Spotify. It might be someone else's ad network who we use on the podcast, but it's location based as well. So I guess North Dakota is near
relatively
Wisconsin.
closer than we are.
You could probably drive there in like 12 hours.
17 days, I'd say.
It's probably quite a long bus trip.
Yeah.
It's a very long place. But do you know what I mean? Like, so there's two factors. I think one is it's being done, this kind of next level advertising, you know, and the other one is I think the US people will get different. I mean, I don't think people in Germany are getting adverts for Wisconsin. Do you know what I mean? Feels like it's weird. I did notice that when I went to Florida, my adverts changed on the podcast. So I was downloading the podcast out there. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you remember the other week you mentioned some battle, and as soon as I started Googling it, I said it out loud, and then as soon as I started Googling it, it auto-completed the Battle of, and it was like an obscure one. It wasn't like
I think that's
the Battle of Trafalgar, which you would expect to be.
But I think, again, it was a popular search phrase that week because Criminal had done this podcast. They're a huge fucking podcast, and the book had come out.
That makes sense.
So I think it was
so
being
it shifted the algorithm
more than normal.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think so.
That's good. I like that one. Can I just say, we get so many emails about Wisconsin. I know Sips does.
So many emails.
I do. That I now have people saying, I promise this isn't about Wisconsin, or the subject will be not about Wisconsin, hoping that I then read the email because they know.
That's good. That's a good way to start the email, because oftentimes if that's not anywhere in the subject line of the email, I just delete without reading. Because I know what's coming. And if it's not Wisconsin, let's face it, it'll be Pennsylvania or Luton or some other place that I've mentioned in the past. I mean, there's dozens of people that live in these places, and they all seem to think that emailing me to complain about it is the way to go. Take it up with the tourism board is my advice to you. Your local tourism board.
On spiritualism, I did read a book about premonitions, right? So there's a book called, hang on, I have to look it up. It's called The Premonitions Bureau by Sam Knight. It was at airport.
Oh, they made a movie about that, didn't they? With was that the one with Matt Damon in?
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
I don't know. Anyway, it's a real story. It's not.
Okay.
Fiction.
Well, no, this is different then.
And it's basically back in 1966. That there was the Aberfan mining disaster. Do you remember that? Well,
Aberfan, yeah, that was terrible. It was like a school in Wales. A mudslide came down and engulfed the school in mud.
Yes,
killed a ton of kids. It was absolutely terrible.
It was terrible. Yeah, they in the Netflix series The Crown, there's an episode.
That's where I first heard of it.
Yeah, same here. That's where I'd first heard of it as well.
In The Crown, is it the Queen standing on top of a hill of mud, stamping on it? Trying to cause a landslide. Is that what they claimed?
No. They kind of criticized her because it took her a while to actually go out to the site to visit and lend support and stuff. It was a couple of days. They thought that perhaps her
walking the dogs or
she's very
pheasants.
much I think it's all to do with her sort of progression into becoming more personable as a monarch or whatever. Like at first she had these ideas that she had this very specific role and she didn't stray too far from it or whatever. But then, a couple of these things happened, and she was, she kind of doubled back on herself.
Like what's going on now with with a lot of things, like modern things like Black Lives Matter or pro-trans. Like companies have to say they are, because if they're not, people assume they're the opposite, right? So it's like, why are Pringles not saying Black Lives Matter? They must be, they must be racist, right? So, like, that's the assumption, and I think this is the start of it when the Queen was not going to Aberfan.
yeah.
Welsh Lives Matter, you madge.
It is a genuine thing. I think there was other stuff to do with the Prince of Wales at the time, and Welsh not, do you know what I mean? And I think inequality's always been a big factor. I think a big issue was relatively.
He was also the Prince of Mud, so it's kind of hard for him to pick sides. Prince of Wales and Prince of Mud. That's a tough one.
Yeah, he couldn't figure out which
the
one.
Mudmen are going to be furious if he turns up. Regardless of the disaster and the lives lost, you can't pick sides. He had to stay apolitical, so he can't back Wales or Big Mud.
It's really tricky. It's like today. What do Pringles do? If I'm Pringles, do I change my logo to a rainbow Pringle?
No,
I'll
get
accused
you why.
of being woke, or do I not? And then people accusing me.
Here's why I don't give a shit.
How do I win as Pringles?
Can I tell you why I don't give a shit? Tell me if you agree. First of all, you're right, they can't win. Second of all, they're a fucking corporation. Do you honestly think they're doing any of this because they believe it? No.
I think it feels
they
so
don't give
cynical.
A shit. It is entirely cynical. I guarantee you that they would pick whatever view is popular and stick it on a fucking can of Pringles. They don't give a shit.
But it's because we've had this personalization or anthropomorphization of companies, right? Of we start, because it works for brands. They like to be your they like to be your friend. They like to be someone that you associate with and you know, because it makes them so much more, I don't know, appealing.
It's
and
like
real.
buying something from a mate, not just from a shop. You're buying it. Pringles? Oh, yeah, I know Mr. Pringles very well. He's a good lad.
He makes some real funny tweets.
Yeah, he thinks that Black Lives Matter, so I'll buy Mr. Pringles crisps. He doesn't give a shit. They don't.
Anyway.
None of them give a shit. Stop confusing corporate support of anything with meaning.
So after Aberfan, there was this psychologist who was interested in these sort of psychic disasters, almost. You know, where there was a lot of grief. You know, 116 kids died in a not very big town.
Oh, it's devastating.
And so almost everyone, it was the kind of the only kids school in that town. So every parent with small children had kind of was bereaved, and it was a terrible time.
It was awful. Yeah.
So this guy John Barker, the book follows his sort of story of how he turned up here and looked at what was going on, talked to some people in the town, and started actually finding that some people had foretold it in some ways, right? People were like, "Oh, I knew I shouldn't have sent her to school that morning," or "Oh, I saw this good spirit over her bed," or "Oh, I saw like in the hills, I saw this black figure, and it was telling me that the mountains were going to slip." And he became fascinated with this idea, and so what he did was he sort of put a newspaper thing out and said, "Did anyone predict this? Did anyone foretell this?" And there a couple of 400, 500 people wrote in, most of them cracks, saying, "I predicted it. I had a bad feeling that morning."
Right.
They told their story about how it happened. Now, of course, two things. One, there were a lot of these coal tips that were next to the town. They lived in the spectre of these giant coal tips that had slipped before and done these landslides. They were scary. So it is totally understandable that some people would have been scared that they would have fallen, and that could have led to, people saying, "Oh, I knew it would happen," right? But also saying it after it happened has no credence whatsoever in terms of premonitions that, they can be just, it's useless, right? So what he did was he knew that this was if people predicted it afterwards or said, "Oh, I predicted it before, but I have no evidence," it's no good. So he was like, "I want to set up this bureau." And he worked with this science journalist in London who basically told people for a year to write in with their predictions.
Anytime they had a bad feeling about
Anytime they had a bad feeling or a prediction, and they would get it going, right? They'd write it down, they'd find out if it happened. And there were these two people. One of them was a music teacher called Miss Middleton, and one was a switchboard operator called Alan Hencher.
Right.
And they had some really, really uncanny predictions, right? Like Alan Hencher, he predicted a plane crash that involved 123 people, right?
Right.
Only 9 days later, plane crashed, killing 124 people.
So he was wrong. Well, that's
So he
didn't
wrong.
get it wrong, right? But maybe he was too preoccupied with the eternal underground war that was happening and reporting back from the front. He got some of the stats mixed up.
And so, Miss Middleton, she was like this sort of odd music teacher, but she kept writing in, and she wrote in about this. Do you remember when, I don't know if you've seen it on Reddit or anything, there was when the Russians had their Vladimir Komarov went into space. He wasn't the first man in space.
Right.
He was in like a test flight afterwards. But he was in this really shoddily made Russian space program.
But yeah.
And basically he was like this. It was like completely disastrous. Like I think what's his name? The actual guy Yuri Gagarin said to him, "You're probably going to die." That's kind of thing. It was like, and he this was Soviet Russia. He didn't really have a choice.
Right.
He went up. He was like, everything went wrong, but like to the point where he didn't even know which direction he was going. But because he was a great pilot, he managed to get through it all, get the spacecraft back into the atmosphere. Like it was like this heroic, epic tale that Hollywood would have been proud. And then, of course, the parachute failed on the way down, and so he died anyway. And he his sort of petrified remains or whatever were shown as this terrible. There's this terrible image of it, which it's just like looks like a bit of molten lava or whatever. Poor guy. But Kathleen Middleton the day before, had a vision about a petrified astronaut.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing this. And she also sent a warning about Robert F. Kennedy. Yeah, 3 times.
And nobody listened.
On June 4th.
Sorry. Stop calling me. I am going to get in that car. Is that what happened? Oh, Robert Kennedy. Oh, so not wrong Kennedy.
Sorry, Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy. But again, Robert Kennedy being assassinated. So Robert Kennedy was his
brother,
cousin, brother. Was he brother?
Wasn't he? His younger brother, wasn't he? Robert Kennedy.
Was he younger brother? Or
was
he
that
older brother?
Sirhan killed him? I think.
I can't remember, but it was obviously John F. Kennedy had been assassinated. Robert F. Kennedy was running for president, I think, or he was running for a nomination or something. God, sorry, my history is terrible on this, but it was, again, she was, in a sense, there are like indications that these people can be primed for these things. There is news, there is fear, there is worry, there is people talking in the newspapers about these people doing these things. And Robert F. Kennedy was very scared of being assassinated.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of the time his guys were like, don't go out, don't do this. And he was like, look, I've got to be out in the crowds. I just have to roll the dice every time I go out. And he was kind of going against the orders of people, and it was kind of known that assassination was a danger. So it's not like these predictions necessarily were in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, it just happened again and again, and it was almost getting me. Do you know what I mean? I was almost like, is there something to these two people, because they were consistently
So out of
able
the
to predict these events.
18 out of 723 predictions, 12 of them were hits, and that was just Henshaw and Middleton. So yeah, that's interesting. So they got 12
so they had
correct. But right, but how many wrong? How many times were they wrong?
And how wrong were the wrongs? Like,
well, this
are we
exactly
talking ridiculous? Like,
this is a great example.
I mean, I think a lot of it.
Great question.
If, for example, she had no idea that there was any astronauts, like that was even a thing. If they had no idea of astronauts, if you were able to describe something that you had no previous knowledge of at all, then I think that would be quite impressive.
yeah.
But if you're constantly in the news reading about space shuttles and rockets and people going up, maybe she just read a lot of the news. I mean, there are multiple explanations for this that definitely don't go down the route of she was psychic. I think it's more likely, if I read loads and loads and loads about politics or whatever, and occasionally my predictions were right, you wouldn't think I was a genius. I just occasionally going to be right if you read enough about this stuff, and you're going to dream about it. I've been fucking dreaming about Mechabellum all bloody week because I've been playing that. So, it's one of those things where you
get those like weird, like sweaty dreams where it's impossible to solve. You're like, I just need to use this composition, but it's not working,
right.
and stuff like that. Like your mind won't let you have it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I woke up the other morning, I think it was yesterday, and the first thing I said to Mrs. F was, "Did you find my dice yet?" And this was, but I wasn't awake at that point. I was just talking before I'd woken up, but I was dreaming about dice, and I had lost some dice, and I asked her some other question as well, and she was just like, "Yes, dear," like just trying to humor me until I woke up. But I was like,
imagine you were like, "Oh, you haven't seen it? Ask my girlfriend if she knows where they are," or something like that.
Exactly.
something that would have gotten you in the doghouse.
One of my wives will know. Yeah. So Sirhan, by the way, is still in prison. He was the guy who killed RFK. In 1969, he was sentenced to prison, life in prison. He almost got out on parole, but then the district attorney, the governor said no. So he's still in prison. Interesting.
I'm trying to think if there's examples of like real arseholes that have been like assassinated over the years. I mean, like I know Mussolini, they publicly hanged.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that an assassination.
But I'm talking about like in the like the same way that like John Lennon was shot, or Kennedy or
Lincoln
or whatever.
Yeah.
All these people that have been assassinated. Has there ever been like a really unpopular person that's been assassinated, and then a lot of people were like,
let's look at Europe alone.
That's a good point.
I'm looking. It does always seem to be people that are like
popular,
not the bad guys.
Yes,
they're the ones who get shot. Well, certainly, I don't know. I mean,
maybe it's just called a different thing, though. If someone if someone is brought down in that way, it's not so much.
Because I know, like, there's definitely some examples of like, I know there's.
I tell you who was assassinated. Fucking Osama bin Laden. There you go.
Sure. But,
that was a military operation.
There was a guy who was shot dead in an airport, and it was the father of a son that this guy had kidnapped and abused over the course of
years
I saw
and years.
That. This guy hid a gun in his boot went to the airport where he knew that they were bringing him through or whatever, because there was like press and stuff there, and then just blew his head off.
Yeah, he shot him.
And he only got,
I
think he only got community
They were very
service.
lenient.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they were super lenient on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he'd had no prior.
He had to clean up the
anything.
airport
He
terminal.
wasn't deemed a dangerous person or whatever. He was just acting entirely out of rage and grief or whatever. But
I suppose it has to be. I guess it has to be a single gunman, right? Or a conspiracy.
I think it would need to be a very small number of people that are either employed privately to do this assassination. That's if it's a group. Solo practitioners who are just, I don't like this guy and what he stands for, I'm going to kill him, which is the classic assassination. And I don't think that you could really classify the killing of Osama bin Laden as an assassination, because it was sanctioned by the US military to go in there in helicopters and kill this guy. Like, they'd been looking for him for years. He knew they were after him. I always think of assassinations as being like Lincoln, where someone just walks up and goes,
yes.
fuck you, bang. Like,
oh, no. So Lincoln's assassination was a big conspiracy. They were originally planning on kidnapping him. There was a whole bunch of people involved.
Really?
And John Wilkes Booth, the guy who assassinated him, was originally like, he was the most famous actor of his time. He was like the Tom Cruise of his time. I'm not even joking. He was a son of like an incredibly famous actor who was the son of a famous actor. He was like doing these stages to sold out crowds. He was incredibly famous, and he was a very strong Southern advocate.
Wow.
Because the Civil War was going on. He wanted to kidnap Lincoln, and he had this plan. And one day he actually changed the plan to an assassination. I don't know why. He was like, and he was obsessed as well. He wanted to do it in the theater. He didn't want to do it like they'd made all these elaborate plans to go on. And so at the same time, of course, he woke up one morning. He said, "I forget the kidnapping. We're just going to kill him." He told his conspirators. One of the other conspirators was set to kill the Secretary of State. The other one was set to kill the other guy, some other guy. And one guy abandoned it and ran away. The other guy fudged the assassination. And John Wilkes Booth was the only one who actually went through. And he didn't have an escape plan either. He jumped off the balcony where he'd assassinated Lincoln and broke his leg.
Oh, what?
And that was how he got caught.
Jesus
Because
Christ.
he just couldn't. Well, actually, he broke his leg and then limped away with a broken leg, and then was picked up in a barn actually a little bit later. But he did actually escape. But it was this whole like bungled thing, right? It wasn't, even though it was a conspiracy and they'd been planning it for ages. It was this shoddily done thing. And so yeah, it wasn't just a random nutcase at all. It was this hugely thought out process, and it was a real conspiracy. It was an actual conspiracy, and lots of the other co-conspirators were hanged afterwards, I think, as well.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, when they got them all. It was
Wow.
this big deal at the time. Lincoln. So sorry, that's a bad example of a conspiracy.
No,
that
that's
was just
a great
lone
one.
lunatic.
And what did he shout? Without looking it up, what did Booth shout when he was on the stage?
He shouted something in Latin,
Yeah.
but apparently the audience, because it was everyone was screaming and yelling. Apparently, it's even disputed that he shouted it because
So, yeah, I can believe it. Apparently, he shouted "Sic semper tyrannis," which means "thus always to tyrants." Thus always to tyrants. So, in other words, like that's what you get for being a tyrant. Which is incredibly ironic that you're looking to free people, and he's like, "You fucking tyrant! You're freeing slaves. Well, I'll stop you." Pretty hilarious.
But of course, when they found him in the barn, they just shot him to death immediately.
Oh wow!
So they didn't take him prisoner or question him. So we don't know what he actually said or had intended to say, or his motivations on that last day.
Very Lee Harvey Oswald, dare I say?
Yeah. So that's I guess that's again where conspiracies spring from, is that's not a satisfying end, right? You want to hear more deeper ideas, right? If it was just a lone lunatic, maybe the conspiracy theory would have blossomed that I just told you, but actually that conspiracy was real.
And like all conspiracies, it was pretty quickly discovered to be a conspiracy, and everybody knew who was involved, and one guy turns and then the whole thing falls apart. That's most conspiracies, I think. There's not really many successful conspiracies that nobody has ever learned about, and especially not these vast underground wars that apparently thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people are involved in. But you know,
the underground mole
somehow
wars.
Doesn't leak.
This is brilliant, by the way. I love it. It's so dumb.
It's
like
dumb.
The only fucking like it's like in New York City, the sewers, right? You see in movies, like in Gotham, you see people going into the fucking sewers all the time and living down there and building all these
people
shitty
live down
things
there
down
in
there.
New York a lot, actually. There's a whole underground population. They ain't fighting a war unless it's the war against fucking starving to
I
death.
know. And I can understand in somewhere like New York with abandoned subway stations and stuff having this, actual... But it's ludicrous to suggest that there's some sort of network of these tunnels, like, and people the mole men are battling secretly. Do you know what I mean?
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Well,
is
the
that where you
evidence
get
is apparently
from.
No,
Like-
I don't know. I mean, they're literally once you come up with something.
Oh, don't
that's...
tell them about sinkholes
No,
because they'll
God,
add that
no.
to the theory.
I think, like with any of these things, if you come up with a nebulous enough theory, which is the conspiracy theory that there's an underground war, you can tie anything to that. Anything that you want. You can say, see, and just hold it up. And people who are clueless and don't really think about these things for themselves read that and go, oh, knew it.
Do you think it was an earthquake? It was actually an
Oh.
underground bomb.
And all you have to do is say, wake up. Come on, they're pulling the wool over your eyes. Don't fall for it. Don't be like those sheep out there. Be different like us. And you're now part of a community of nutters who think they're geniuses. Join us. And a quarter of people in this country, apparently, happy to jump on that train. Fucking idiots.
I mean, I don't mean to be offensive or anything, but I find British people can be quite eccentric. I find Americans can as well. And I mean, equally, the Canadians. I've known some eccentric Canadians
You
as
are
well.
not fucking
no,
wrong.
we're
Like,
very eccentric.
I'm not
you are
surprised
not wrong at all.
that a quarter of people would believe
There's a guy
this
who
stuff.
walks around in Bristol walking his ferret on a little lead.
Yeah.
It's cute, but weird and eccentric.
Can I just also say, and I hope any German listeners will attest to this as well, Germans are pretty eccentric too. I think it's when we were, for example, when I was in Berlin, I saw a lot of very odd people. It's quite an artsy kind of place. It sort of attracts those people. A bit like, it's like a very, very big Bristol in that it's kind of like, I mean, well, it's quite different from Bristol, really, but it's like the attitude there is quite artsy and going outy and, people sort of be themselves sort of thing. There was a guy in the park walking backwards towards us, and
Right.
he was quite a way away. It's a very long path in the middle of this park. I think it's the Tiergarten. And he's walking towards us, and we thought he had a hood up. And as he's getting closer, we realize he's walking backwards, and he's walking backwards very well. Walking backwards at the same speed you would walk forwards, swinging his arms like normal, but he's walking backwards. And we thought, Jesus Christ, this is freaky. When he gets past us, we'll look back at him and it'll be the back of him, like he had a man with no front. But instead, he's just walking backwards, like broad daylight.
He's just trying something new.
a person
Yeah.
who jogged backwards. He was obsessed with it. He was a Dutch guy,
Right.
and he would always jog backwards. Like that was his like he was obsessed with it being like really good for you or something. Like it worked out muscles that you didn't normally use or something. Do you know what I mean? He was just a normal middle-aged guy who got it in his head that this was the thing to do. And yeah, I think some people are just eccentric, and we embrace eccentricness. I mean,
I honestly don't mind it. I
it's
don't
quite
mind.
sweet.
I don't mind what you believe in. I don't mind what you spend your time doing, as long as it's not hurting somebody else, and as long as you're happy and having a fun time. I mean, more power to you. Carry on. But the minute you start being aggressive or mean to other people or hurting other people or whatever, that's when I don't agree with you. But you can believe in whatever you want and do what you like.
I think the problem is with this stuff is that it's all on a spectrum, right, of misinformation. And sometimes that misinformation is harmless when one person's holding on to it, but when someone else is holding on to it, they are radical. People they think that other people need to hear it. They've got a personality type which oftentimes I think is, and I've said this a lot of these guys in the street who yell religious dogma at you, they're trying to protect you from going to hell. They're on your side. They're like, I want to save these people. I'm a good guy. That's when you look at it from that angle, you're like, it's like totally justified. But when people start, taking that to the next, some people, you might say that's harmless, but that's exactly the same thing that's happening with people who are doing a more extreme thing to bring that to save people, right? It's like, I'm going to bomb this thing to save people.
Yes.
I'm going to do this thing, in the name of something which doesn't exist. It's harmless when it's not hurting anyone, but in the wrong hands, even like the most innocuous thing, I'm not saying the underground mole men,
no, but
people are going to start terrorizing the planet, but do you know what I mean? Like there are some things that are genuinely harmless, but there are also things that are not, like even like veganism, like feeding your baby, misfeeding your baby or
not
animals, like because you believe in this diet, or not vaccinating your kids, like these types of things, like clearly it comes from sometimes a place of crazy protection and love, but it's actually damaging. This is just always going to be a thing, and I think we're always going to carry it with us as humans. We're always going to carry
easily
these.
led. I think as we've talked about this a lot, we're easily led, and we want to think that we understand something that other people don't. For some reason, that appeals to people,
and we're also very stuck in our ways. I'm sure this Caroline Coram cannot get out of this now, right? Because she's made a living here. She cannot go back and say, "Oh, guys, I was wrong," because she would get. She'd rather have all the yes people yesing her than everyone
maybe at first she she was just joking around a bit, didn't really believe it. But the more people that started validating her, she thought, "Oh, this is good, actually."
Wow, I don't want to give her that much credit.
I'm just going to ride this out.
if she did come forward and be like, "Hey guys, look, I got sucked in by this. It's bogus. Sorry, look." I would give her credit for that, though. I think more people need to do that, not necessarily even publicly. Just if she just went dark. But I think again, it's what she's got all of these. It's paying her rent, probably. The book and the YouTube channel and the whatever, and the interviews on the BBC or whatever, and the people pointing and laughing at her is paying her to live. So how is that different to any other demeaning job,
customer service,
right, where you put up with it? Yeah, exactly. It's probably better to just be a fake fucking conspiracy nut on YouTube than work in a call center.
We could turn the Triforce into a new home for conspiracy lunatics. Get them on as guests. They can talk, and we'll just nod and go, "Wow, that's amazing," and just sort of, just dive in.
We'll get a cut of their book.
Yeah, we get a cut. Obviously.
It'll be like a honey trap. We'll have them on, and we'll be like, "Yeah, very, very interesting. Okay, well, thanks for coming on the show." And then as they walk outside, the police are just waiting. Just like,
oh my god, I was watching a documentary the other day on YouTube about, this was in Oakland, there's a sting operation that they do where they post a Craigslist ad that's basically saying, "I am a very young girl looking for a good time. I'm at this hotel, call me." And these guys call up. The police officer, or an adult female police officer, answers the phone. She has quite a high voice, so she sounds young. They arrange to meet her, and the coppers are just waiting at the hotel.
Yes.
And the guy comes in the front door, they grab him, they cuff him, they stick him on a bed in one of the rooms of the hotel, and they had 12 guys within an hour. Literally 12 guys. And they're all just sitting on this bed, handcuffed. And
it's like fishing.
Yeah, literally fishing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've never understood the argument that this is entrapment. The thing is, if I'm trying to commit an illegal act and you catch me by pretending that I'm going to aid and abet you in committing that illegal act, and you voluntarily turn up to do that, I don't think that's entrapment. I think it's just a good way to catch these fucking nonces who are walking around trying to find underage girls to have sex with. How is that so bad? I don't get it. Like, if I come up to you and say, "Hey, you want to buy some cocaine?" And you say, "No thanks." If you go, "Yeah, mate, give me all the cocaine you've got. Here's all my money." And then you slap the cuffs on him. Is that entrapment? Is that so bad? I don't really understand. Someone explain the legal ramifications.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they get the drug people, isn't it? It's they try to buy drugs from a police officer, usually.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's a sting.
That's.
I think most of the people that cry entrapment are people who don't want to get caught the same way. Because they're like, I was planning on doing this, and I've seen it go wrong for these guys, and I don't want the same.
Well, you can't say that, though. You can't say that all defense lawyers are actually secretly murderers.
I can. I can say whatever I like. Don't email me.
Cease and desist letter to Chris Lovis.
Actually, I think you'll find but it's
again, it's different states probably have different laws as well on that kind of thing.
More worrying is the balls that have been developed on these people to read a random ad and actually turn up.
Right. I mean, that's clearly not the first time.
That can't not be first time.
I don't turn up to meetings with people I like. Let alone random people.
To me, it is insane. And I feel like doing that, they're catching the right people, because these are people who are on the verge of doing something really, really bad. Right. Like they're ready. They're ready to take the next step into this fucking
their career
gross
in this
world
shit
that
is
they
just
live
beginning.
in. Yes.
Exactly. Their career is a burgeoning career that's just getting started. So let's nip it in the bud. I'm on board with it. And I just thought it was really interesting to see all these guys handcuffed on this bed. None of them allowed to talk to each other, just thinking, I've fucked up.
What the hell would you say to the other person? Like, oh, did you read the ad
first
too?
time? Yeah. Good advert, though, wasn't it? Really was good.
Really convincing.
Suckered me right in. When's the girl turning up?
Oh, no.
Fucking hell. Jesus Christ.
They are that clueless, though. That's the thing. It's funny. It's not funny at all. I can't imagine having a job like working on that sort of stuff.
I think it would be satisfying to catch them.
Absolutely traumatize you, though. Like, you would never... It would change you. You would never, like, view the world the same way again, right? Like,
yeah. No, I think you're right, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people that have to work in the police and look at, like, images to ensure... What grade of illegal is this?
Oh
image?
My God.
They have to look at like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them because they have to rank them. Like this is class 1, this is class 2. And also a lot of these people, there's a subreddit. Well, I guess Reddit is a controversial topic right now, so I'll mention it anyway. There's a subreddit that it was about, do you know where this comes from? And it shows clippings from photos, abuse photos, of like a weird shirt that someone's wearing. Where is this shirt? Have you ever seen this shirt? Or an object. What do you think this is? What is this? And it's asking for people to know, like, what is this football team? Because that'll give us some idea. It's a weird, obscure one. That'll let us narrow down either who this person is or where this town is, and we can go there and look.
So fucking creepy.
Right.
Well, no, it's the police asking for help where they don't know.
Exactly.
So it'll be like the police have got some weird book, and they'll be like, does anyone know where this book came from?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so it's kind of like crowdsourcing help, which I think is the way to do it, honestly. Like to all these amateur sleuths. Reddit has the answer. Like there's loads of, do you know what this thing is?
Right.
Or what's this thing in my food? And everyone's like, oh, that's Korean radish or whatever. And you're like, oh, cool. Now I know what it is. I can go and buy it in the Chinese supermarket, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what 90%... there's a Chinese supermarket near where I live, and I go there occasionally. And I wish I knew what more of the shit was in there, because everything I've tried has been nice, but I don't know if I'm cooking it right or using it right.
Yeah.
You know,
You're just freestyling with it. You just think, this looks like it goes in the frying pan.
So I have been... I know this is a bit of a shift, but I've this is a bit of a shift from where we just were. But I signed up to online dating
again.
Site.
Oh, what are you doing?
Why?
I know. Well,
why do you do this
I've been
to
single
yourself?
for a year now, and I signed
man.
up last night. Partly because someone else in the office has recently done so and recommended that I have a look. And I was swiping on some people last night, and I feel like Bristol people are okay. Like 10% of people have, you know, that makeup where it makes their nose look thinner and they look like a beautician at the House of Fraser beautician counter, right? 10% of people are that. Okay,
right.
I don't want to put people.
I'll take
in
your
boxes,
word for it.
right? Like 10% of people on there, and I'm looking at like people in my age group, right? So 35-ish, right? Is a few years younger than me, but you know that age, right? 35 to 39 is my age group, right? And so it's like, but 10% of people have. Well, I'd say, okay, 10% of people have that beauty thing. 10% of people are some sort of festival hippie. Okay, they still love going to festivals in their mid-30s. They're into.
Well, you do live in Bristol, so yeah.
Yeah, they're into like that, and they haven't always got blue hair, but they've normally got some sparkly shit on their face, or they're in a field at a festival, or being held up on someone's shoulders with a beer. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's 10%, and then there's like, I'd say a good 30 or 40% actually. So like a majority have either children or children surrogates, right? Like a big dog or like 3 cats,
right?
Do you know what I mean? Or something like that. And I mean, dogs I'm okay with. I'm not ready to. I'm allergic to cats, so problem.
I mean, no. Look, I get it. It's very hard if you're a single parent to find someone who's willing to be in a relationship with kids,
especially when you're a little bit older, because most people have baggage. Like,
but the reason I'm talking about this, we're going to describe. So I'm just saying that it's fun, but the reason I'm talking about it is because I see a lot of professional women, right, who are in their mid-30s, and they've got proper jobs. A lot of doctors, a lot of lawyers,
right.
A lot of people, a lot of NHS, like either like an intensive care surgeon or like a paramedic. And I was like, they don't necessarily look traumatized.
Oh, no.
but they sometimes they have their quite serious look on them, doctors, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's a little bit like when you're at school and you sort of forget their teacher's a real person, right? Because they have to be strict.
Yeah, like when you
And-
see teachers outside of school the first time, it's exciting. Like, oh my God, that's Mr. Johnson. He's just shopping like anybody else.
It's funny to think, though, that all these teachers that I had in school, where at the time I was like, God, what a fucking idiot. These people are so stupid or whatever. I'm the same age as them now. Like,
Right,
it's weird to think, isn't it?
It's weird because I'm 40 this year, right? And so I'm like thinking, one, I don't, these beauty people who are like, you know, clearly they're not looking for someone like me, right? The second thing is like people who have dogs or kids, like, am I okay with that? I have to ask these, I'm not sure. I've not had to confront this. You know, I've been in a relationship for the last 8 years.
Do an experiment for us.
do you
You
know what I
can be the guinea pig. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to try and go out with one person from each group. You have to go on a date.
Oh my God.
Because at the moment, you're deciding ahead of meeting someone, you're grouping them, and you're saying this person's like this and this person's like that. I'm just saying, just go and do an experiment and pick one of these people from each of the groups that you've identified. This is going to be your project. And just go on a date. Doesn't have to be anything else, just a date. And go and see what they're like and chat to them. And let us know, and let yourself know, what am I looking for? And go and meet a doctor, for example. And
This is it.
Just see what it's like going out with a
Because
doctor.
I think what's happened is when I was last single, which was when I was about 31, 32, the people I was dating were usually at the age where they were either thinking about having kids soon, like when they were 30, you know, 30,
Right.
post 30. And they weren't also necessarily as settled and professional. And now the women are like, they own their own house and they have
Right.
their own bakery. And
Yeah.
it's like, do you know what I mean? Or like, and so it's like a whole different crowd. And I'm almost
They all
like,
sound like contestants for The Apprentice. All these people.
I think that is it. That's what I'm dealing with. And
Maybe
that-
you could give them an apprentice-style series
Yeah.
of challenges.
Maybe you can
I've
lay
laid
on a
this
nice
Indian
date
meal
with
for
them.
you.
Here's the big problem. I am like a man child, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
like I'm a scrawny, nerdy, 5'8"
Video game
idiot,
player.
right? Video game player, professional nerd. So it's like, I guess like I don't have an inferiority complex, I guess, but I have like this.
I don't think you should. Listen, I'm just
Like,
saying, don't overthink it. Go out on a couple of dates and see how it goes.
Well,
and
it's just at
relax.
the front of my mind because I
understand, but don't overthink it. Just relax. Go on
Yeah.
some dates and see how it goes.
You're
If you've got
already
homework.
overthinking
Go in here
it.
and be a bit more chill. I mean, I'm not being funny. I've been married a very long time. It'd be very exciting to go out on a date. I'm not saying I want it to happen. I'm very happy. But if I had to, I'd be like, wow, this is a new experience. It's something
man,
new.
I'm like the-
you
I'm-
haven't done this in a while.
I'm the
I'm
opposite.
not sure I could be bothered with it, but it
I
would be
would
interesting.
never go on a date. Like if things like didn't work out, I would just stay on my own forever. Like,
Well,
I
this
would
is what I've
never
done for the
go on
last
a
year,
date.
Six, but I felt like
I would do that too.
I thought it would
fucking
be
use
fun to try and see what happens. I'm very happy where I am. Don't get me wrong. I'm
Well, let
fine.
us know how it goes.
But
Yeah.
which I think is a good time to start doing this stuff when I'm not feeling like
yeah.
But I guess I'm in the right headspace for it. But yeah, so I guess the reason I said this was because I started second guessing myself. I was like, do I want to date like a headmaster? Is that weird?
Yeah, give it a
Do you
go.
know what I
They
mean?
might be
Like,
fantastic.
that's
And
like-
also, there's a lot of role play potential.
Right, I see. Yeah.
Right. So I've got
Headmistress, I
something.
guess.
I want to know
Yeah.
if this annoys you guys as much as it annoyed me. This has been grinding my gears all week. Okay.
Right.
So last weekend, my eldest attempted to do Duke of Edinburgh.
Wow.
And she's been doing it for a couple of months. You have to build up all these activities. And one of the things you have to do is like a camping hiking trip over a weekend.
Yeah.
And they have like the practice run and then a really big practice run and then like the big actual camping trip where you go out.
Right.
So
like
yeah,
onto the
you're kind
fucking-
of on your own in not the middle of nowhere, but some outstanding area of natural beauty where there's a lot of farms and stuff. But you're
Right.
generally not allowed.
It's
Or at least
hard
you
work.
weren't allowed your phone when I did it. You know,
Exactly
it's the
right,
sort of
yep.
thing where you had to navigate on a map through this place and then camp fucking somewhere.
Yeah, it's hard work. So this was the practice run when they have like people along with you, like guiding you and all the rest of it, teaching you how to read the maps and all the rest of it. And I thought, this is good. This is good stuff. So she's like me. She plays a lot of video games. She's not someone who's like constantly out there playing sports and stuff like that. I mean, she's not like not in good shape. She does well in PE. She's perfectly capable.
Sure.
Yeah,
However-
she's like I guess
She's like 14,
a
so, yeah.
standard
She's
teenager
your
who
average
hasn't had a
teenager.
chance to basically have their lifestyle catch up with them yet, right?
Right, exactly.
Because that happens
So-
in your 20s, right?
Of
You
course,
carry on doing
mid-20s
everything,
and
but you
30s.
suddenly get like You just balloon.
Exactly. So she's not there. And she attempted the camping thing. I dropped her off. She had a backpack that she had to carry. This backpack had everything for the weekend: food, changes of clothes, bottles of water, sleeping bag, big sleeping bag, bedroll, and the backpack itself is one of those big Bergen-style backpacks with like straps to...
Like SAS style.
This thing is heavy. Yeah, this thing
weighs
heavy.
Way too much. Yeah.
And she's
Did
14,
you teach her how to pack it so that nothing inside would get wet? And then to test it out, did you chuck it in the water and tell her to jump in and get it?
No, I didn't. But it was heavy. It weighed so much that when my youngest put it on, she was like, her knees were buckling. It was heavy. If I'd had to carry this all day, I'm thinking, Christ. We get to the campsite, and the lady that organizes it is there, and it's very hot that weekend. Everybody will remember. On the Sunday, is this 30
last
degrees
weekend?
or whatever,
yeah, it was a heat wave here in the
exactly.
UK.
It's still hot here.
Fucking boiling, and
it was boiling.
And everyone in another country who says, where, it's hot like this all the time. We don't have aircon in our houses as standard because it's
also,
not hot.
Also, we grew up in a country that isn't hot. Like,
and we're used to it being cold all the time. So every time it gets hot, every British person takes their top off and loses their mind.
And here's the other thing. We're not socially set up to deal with heat. If you go to hot countries that are hot all the time, when it's the middle of the day and the sun is beating down and it's fucking boiling, people aren't outside running about. They're inside in the shade, chilling out, drinking water, and not doing anything.
It just grinds my gears. Anyway, that grinds my gears. Carry on.
So I drop her off, and I'm saying to the lady, these bags are really heavy. Are they going to, like, drop some stuff off at the campsite? She goes, oh, no, they'll be walking around with them all day.
Yeah.
I was like, really? I said, they're really heavy. She said to me, you should have packed less stuff.
Yeah. That's what I would have said to you.
Right. So I said to her, you gave us a list, and I packed everything on the list because that's what we were told to do. She just laughed and walked away.
Right, okay.
Now,
so you had the right answer. Now, I would have said...
I was furious.
I would have said to you, show me that list. But I guess there was a time.
List. I had the list. They printed out and gave us this list.
What is this list? Can I see it?
It
just
was
because
a
I
very
want to know
long
if there's
list.
anything that's you could get cut
I
off
can
it.
tell you what was on there, okay?
Yes.
The backpack, for example, a waterproof liner for the backpack.
Right, so everything in there was...
Everything in there is waterproof.
And did you do the test,
that doesn't weigh very much. That doesn't weigh very much.
You have to have a plate and a cup, a knife and fork.
What kind of plate, cup, knife and fork?
Just a camping set, just like it's lightweight camping set.
Okay, right, cool.
You
didn't bring like a ceramic one from the cupboard.
No. 4 meals.
4 meals?
4 meals.
Are they like the baggy ones from a camping shop?
They were like dehydrated ones that you just add water.
Okay, yeah, you know what you're doing with those. Sure,
exactly. Exactly, MRE stuff. 2 big bottles of water.
Okay, that's
She
heavy.
then needs to have a raincoat, waterproof trousers.
Don't know if you need those things.
Change of shoes.
Don't know if you need that.
Needed to have a change of clothes. Needed to have a fleece.
Not on this day.
An air pillow. Right, but the thing is, I said to her, when we packed, we didn't know what the weather was going to be like. And you don't know what it's going to be like overnight. You don't pack for the way things are. You pack for the way things could be. That's the whole point.
Yes.
You don't say, well, it's not going to rain.
And that's why I brought with me my blacksmith's anvil, just in case.
Exactly, just in case. But I was just like, what the fuck are you saying to me? You should have packed less stuff. All these kids packed everything you put on the list because that's what we were told to do. And now you're laughing about the fact the bags are fucking heavy.
I would have started dumping stuff out of that bag immediately, knowing that it was that hot on the day.
On Sunday, I go to pick her up, and she's failed. She couldn't do it.
Oh.
It's a 6-hour hike on the hottest day of the year so far. And she was like, I just couldn't do it, Dad. It was too much. I was like, don't even worry about it, love. And I picked her up, and we got the fuck out of there. She's
Even
out.
those bags, honestly, weigh a ton. Just empty. Those shitty old fucking bags. They're so crap.
They are
those
really
old
heavy.
Bergens.
But I just couldn't believe the attitude was sort of like laughing at how miserable this is going to be. I was really, really fucking pissed off. And I said to her, love, you don't need to do that shit ever again. Don't worry about it. That's not on you. That's on them. This was awful. They didn't prepare you for this at all. They told you to bring all this stuff, and then they're laughing about how heavy it is. It was fucking ridiculous. I think
that's probably a standard list of stuff that because I remember doing Duke of Edinburgh in the fucking middle of winter. Do you know what I mean? Not on the hottest day of the year. I don't think I ever did anything on the hottest day of the year. Like, we always did it in the most miserable conditions.
Right.
Where we were all fucking sodden, trying to figure out with you got your map in one of those fucking plastic bags to try and read about it.
Tell her to do a portage instead. It's more fun, and you probably get more out of it, and you just do it on your own. You don't need to do it like with, there's nobody on that island that you canoe to. It's just you.
I don't know if it's safe for her to do a portage at her age.
No.
She's a little young.
No.
Well, yeah, maybe. Older. If you went with her, I think in a weird way, like wearing all the clothes and not having to carry them all makes it a bit easier, right?
Yeah, maybe.
If you're wearing the whole like fleece and jacket and all that shit and trudging along, the backpack isn't carrying all that. Whereas on a sweaty day when your back is like instantly sweaty, like within 30 seconds of picking the fucking
just think
bag
how much
up.
water you're going to go through as well. It was crazy. So I was really fucking pissed off. It really, really upset me.
Well,
because even
again,
you're entrusting your child to another adult.
Why are they
and they're
doing
like,
it this time of year?
yeah,
Do
it's
they always
heavy,
do it?
lol. Fuck off.
So was that bronze? Duke of Edinburgh bronze failed?
I don't know. Yeah, I think it was bronze. Yeah.
Because like it gets harder in the next couple of years.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
We
well,
did
I'm
like
fucking glad she's out of it.
Brecon beacons and stuff.
Right,
like,
that's where it would have ended up. But honestly, I had to drive her all over the fucking place.
Brecon beacons was shit.
When she failed, I was secretly very pleased because I was like, "Love, this was such a pain in the ass."
It's like I get it. It's like beautiful scenery at this time of year, but when we were doing it, like you could see like 2 meters in front of your face. Do you know what I mean? I'm not admiring the fucking scenery while I'm slogging this thing across a dank thing, like with my feet all wet. Like,
I've got a website for you guys.
Fun.
This is good for this time of year. All right, I'll give you the URL. Hold on, and this is for everybody actually. Called lightningmaps.org. You can zoom in on your area. Live, real-time lightning strikes will appear on the map as like orange dots, and then it shows an expanding circle of the sound wave of the lightning. So when's the thunder going to get to you? And you can look; it's accurate to within like half a second.
Oh my god, it's thundering!
I want to know. I want to know how
Italy
does it? How does it do it? If anybody knows, how is it able to detect? I mean, there's a huge thunderstorm just northeast of Warsaw as well. And southern Italy, very big, around Messina, and in the islands there. Look at that. You can just see the strikes all the time. Look at all those lightning strikes.
I know, it's crazy.
Is it a network of satellites over Europe? How is it doing? I mean, this is over North America. I'm looking, there's a huge one off the coast of Florida.
But look how many are on the water. There's a lot of them on the water.
Yeah, it's all out to sea.
It can't be reported.
But then around Birmingham, in Atlanta and Baton Rouge and Mississippi, Meridian, a town called Meridian. There's a town called Yazoo City. Huge lightning storm. So I want to know, is this a global network of satellites that are constantly looking out for lightning and detecting it? And then the software can understand, obviously can predict what the sound wave is going to be. Let me know.
There must be like weather APIs that you can just pull all this data from. But
yeah, but where's it coming from before that?
You'd expect there to be some delay and not that level of accuracy.
Dude, it's so fast.
Yeah. There's like a 3-second delay apparently on it.
Because we had a lightning storm here the other day. It really rained in Twickenham. It rained so badly that it pulled down our front wall with the wind.
Holy crap.
The wind, it was like, the wall is like a brick wall.
That's such a British thing.
I know. My bin was moved about 4 feet, if you could believe it.
Wow.
We had one of those signs to advertise, like, there's a summer fair, like everyone in our area's got this thing up for the school, and the wind pulled the wall down using the sign as like a sail. This was not that old a wall. It's been fine, but they pulled a bit of it down. So yeah, it was a serious storm. The rain was just like, couldn't see across the street. And there was lightning, so I looked it up on the map, and there it is. You can see it. It was really something.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Anyway.
That's really cool.
That's so cool.
Lightningmaps.org. If when it's next time it's lightninging, check it out. And
go for it. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. Well, what a podcast. We talked about Transformers. We talked about premonitions.
Yes, what a podcast.
We covered a lot of stuff in this podcast.
Yes.
And this whole time, Pyrian has been named #1 Kim Wexler fan
on
our recording Discord, so I can't get out of my head flipping.
Are you a big Wexler head?
Dude, I just started watching Better Call Saul last week.
Oh, that's right. You told us.
See, she's a professional woman about my age. I think I'd be very daunted by going on a date with Kim Wexler.
Because she's like a
she's a
formed,
great character, isn't she?
She's fantastic. I think every really character on that show has just been phenomenal. I've really loved it. I'm halfway through series 4. I'm caning it.
Oh my god, you've gone so fast. Yeah, it is a very good show. You're right.
Dude, I'm watching like 5-6 episodes a day. I'm just booting through it. I love it. Yeah. I love it so much.
It's a good time to watch it when it's all been aired because you can just binge the shit out of it. It's nice.
Yeah, that's what I and also, like I was saying, I just finished Breaking Bad, so I was like, I don't want more. But now Breaking Bad I haven't watched in years, so I'm ready for a return to the desert, to New Mexico. I want to see where this all started.
Well, you got the movie as well, eh? You got El Camino that you can watch.
I'll watch that when I finish.
If you're mad into it, it's the aftermath of Breaking Bad. It follows Jesse around for a bit with some.
Less interested in Jesse. I've got to say, Jesse was never my favorite character.
I think it follows him in the aftermath, and then there's like some retrospective stuff.
Okay,
you know?
but Saul Goodman is just his character. Kim Wetz is such a good character. In fact, every character on that show, you completely understand. This is something Mrs. F said. I realized we were meant to be ending the podcast. She said the other day that when you watch a show and the characters are consistent and excellent, when they do something out of character, it's so jarring that you almost lose interest in the show instantly.
Oh, yes, my God, yeah.
And I immediately thought of Game of Thrones and the characters in that who suddenly stopped being the character that we had known for season after season and were just idiots and did stupid things that were not in character. If Saul Goodman or Kim Wetzel started doing stuff that was like out of character, you'd notice so quickly. And that's how you know they're good characters.
I've noticed this a lot, like in Star Trek as well, where people are supposed to be this better than thou thing, but they just do the dumbest things sometimes, and you're like, come on.
Yeah.
And I know that you have to be dumb to like get the plot forward sometimes, but it's such a bad way of doing it. I noticed I've just been reading I was reading Wheel of Time, and Robert Jordan very sadly died in about 2005 when he was on book, I think 11 was his last one. And I read that. And then I started reading the Brandon Sanderson book, and instantly Brandon Sanderson, obviously having read them all as a big fan, he did such a great job of like taking over Robert Jordan's style, but also sewing up all of these plot points that like Brandon Sanderson spends a whole book like fixing dead plot lines it was kind of like spinal surgery, right? Like Robert Jordan had just left this person like open with their spine and just a million bits of nonsense spaghetti strings going everywhere. And Brandon Sanderson just gets a needle and he's like, fix this thing, and everyone starts behaving rationally, and you're like,
right.
Oh my God, it's just so satisfying all of a sudden to have people actually talk to other people. Like there's this whole I don't know. Anyway, I'm a big fan of the Wheel of Time generally, and I forgot how much I liked the changeover to Brandon Sanderson, who is a brilliant author. All right, we're going to end the podcast.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
We'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Love you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.